Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. How are you? A bit of a special one this week because about a week or so back I was invited to take part in the press junket for the new release of The Crow. It's a reimagining of the original comic book story and the books, and has been undertaken in Prague with Bill Skarsgård taking over the lead role. Many of you will remember Brandon Lee in the role of the Crow back in the 90s. We are now 5 pictures down the line. There was a television series as well. And on this particular occasion, the stunt coordinator is a guy called Adam Horton. You may well have seen his work on a number of pictures in the past, plenty of big budget stuff. Go and check him out on IMDb for finalising details. And I managed to catch hold of him and have a chat in regard to the movie The Crow and, of course, some of his previous work. And it goes like this. You're a Midlands lad. You're from Birmingham, which is not a million miles away from down the road where I am here in Leicester. So you were from there, and then there's a jump there where you then eventually take some time in the armed forces, about 13 years. What was it? Give us an idea of what it was like. Firstly, growing up from a sort of school perspective, were you primarily a sports fanatic? Was there something academic that you were very happy with? How did all of that work together before you decided that the army was going to be a good career move?
I guess, I start with my family background. I come from, I seem to think it's kind of a big percentage of family in that kind of time of year, which was a broken family, and my parents got divorced, and I was lucky to have a strong sibling surrounding. I had a sister which was just older than me, and we lived in a council estate, so we weren't exposed to the sport that I'm exposed to today. And It was more my father did football, he did half marathons, so I kind of just went on that role. But I was very fickle when I was growing up, and we didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't really join sports as a full-time thing. um, but I was always into the conventional sports. I was lucky to have a very sporty father, so I just almost was his shadow, and whatever he did, I was not far behind him.
Right.
And then leaving that life and going in my academic world of school, I didn't really fit into the theoretical learning of the school system, and always felt that there was energy somewhere that needed to be unleashed and directed and stuff. And so I knew I needed direction. So upon leaving the military, leaving school, I decided to join the military and find that direction and somewhere to, direct my passion, my energy, my what was this inside me, and get some direction and some discipline, which of course my parents gave me, but it was in a different form, as in structure and in an employment status and where you go in the future. And in the military, I found that's where I found a passion for all these sports that I got exposed to, that were kind of not going to cost me or my family money, and were kind of supported by the military. And I guess I would say utilized, but let's say used the military as much as they used me. So I found that as much as I gave the military 13 years, I also took from them what would help me after them 13 years.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Is the fact that the army's going to give you a great grounding for what it is that you're later to come into, as far as the business is concerned. In connection with the military, you then, as you say, you did 13 years. Later on, you decided that stunt work was something that you might be interested in. How did you make that connect? Because it was live shows, wasn't it? So how did you make the connection between that and leaving one and having a look at the other?
Well, funnily, really, to be honest, I was going down the road of close protection and bodyguard when I was leaving the military. And that was in my foremost passion to kind of transition my military skills, which I'd learned, into civilian lifestyle by not losing my connection to military.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I adapt these skills? However, the Gulf War just started, and I found that there was a lot of mercenary, very trigger happy people, just people chasing the finance, that was joining this kind of employment. So I decided I didn't want to be surrounded by these people. How can I make a transition from that? What would be suitable to my lifestyle that would also suit? And one of my friends, who was a big sports personality of mine and a comrade in the military, suggested stunts. And I just found it, that sounds like a good idea. I do all these sports and now I can do them and crash. So,
Yeah.
and get paid for it. So I researched it and found an Australian stunt academy, which I didn't know whether it was good or bad. I knew nobody in the film industry. I didn't even know a makeup artist or a runner or a PA or anybody.
Yeah.
So I went there and took part in the Australian Stunt Academy, which was kind of good to learn all this kind of. It was a small introduction, really. And during that, the guy that run the stunt course there, he offered me a job to teach in the next stunt course, and then I got exposed to auditions to live stunt shows, which pushed me into my first audition to live stunt show, which was then I got the role and then moved into live stunt shows, which my first one was in Madrid in Spain.
Right. And the type of work that you were doing there, I'm often fascinated with this because there's a lot of people who've made that transition from live stunt shows to film and television. Did you go in and find that you were capable of doing anything that was required, or was it specific jobs that you were more capable of? Because there's people who come in for driving jobs or fire jobs or whatever it is. Was there something with you?
I must say I was very lucky because the stunt show I was first installed with it was a brand new theme park in Madrid. It was one of the biggest stunt shows in the world at the time, apart from the Waterworld show in Japan and in America. And because of that, I really was lucky to have the park employed a stunt coordinator, a boat coordinator, a high fall coordinator, a director, a stage director. We had all these tools at hand, so we wasn't just hired for the skills we already had. We were also trained within that rehearsal time for the skills we didn't have that we could utilize within a show. So it made all the cast in the show, these stunt performers, with a wider range of skills that also enabled us to cover each other, to play more parts and give people that rotation within the cast, and then push me onto my further roles, leaving that with this, catalogue of skills that I'd made use of.
And
some people in the stunt shows, to be honest, Joe, have been picked for their certain parts and only been able to do their certain part. Like Legoland, for example, they're highboard divers. They just do highboard diving, which they're very good at, but for then 9 months of the year, and then they don't leave with additional skills. They've just been doing highboard diving, which obviously they're going to be the best at that, what they've done for 9 months. And they've just learned the performance in front of a live audience. But in a general live show, I think it's can be beneficial.
Well, it's rule of thumb for the rest of the work, isn't it? It's versatility. You've got to be versatile to be able to somebody comes up and says, we need you to do this. You go, okay, well, I can do this and I can also do this. So you're keeping your options open. You've got that initial taking there for live shows. What took you to South Africa? Was it the live show system? Was it work out there? Is that how that started?
Well, yeah, correct. I was lucky to get a job. After the job I did in Madrid, I got a job playing Spider-Man in Thorpe Park, which we all know.
Yeah.
As a local place. And then it's a very big tradition in England. It only seems to be in England where we have pantomime at Christmas.
Right.
And during pantomime, it seems like all the way through, and I remember it when I was a child, that there was always a little element within the pantomime of Jack and the Beanstalk or Snow White, where a little comedy act would come on of prisoners chasing a
Hmm.
policeman chasing prisoners over a hobby horse, or
Yes.
some comedy act which was a bit stunty. And I think it was to give the audience a breathing break while people got changed or whatever in the wings or set got changed. Um, and in this stage, they wanted to create this light moment was at that moment the Marvel characters. So they had a South African theatre production come over and request a Spider-Man to be in Jack and the Beanstalk in their stage performance at Christmas in
Right.
Johannesburg.
Okay.
So somebody asked me because I was playing Spider-Man in the live stunt show. I had no commitments. I've always kind of approached my future like, why not? Of course, you know.
Hmm.
So I took that opportunity, and that took me to South Africa. And then after that show, I took the opportunity to go to Cape Town and chase my film career.
Right. And while you were there, I mean, you worked with some great names in the South African business. That must have been absolutely vital for you to as you similar to the army. You've given them 13 years. You're also taking the expertise and information that they have. How important was that period there, finding out not only, you were doing the stunt shows, but also to physically work there within the South African system? How important was it to get that to and fro from those professionals?
Oh, John, to be honest, it was the most important. You know, I really hold dear to my heart a lot of the South African people that I was really lucky to be amongst. To name just a few, Cordell McQueen, who is still, one of the owners of
Hmm.
Stunt SA, Rolly Jensen, God bless his soul, who's sadly passed away.
Yeah.
He was the founder of a lot of the stunts and how they became in South Africa, like England's Vic Armstrong and Simon Crane and stuff. He was their equivalent. So I was lucky to really be immersed into people like them, really from the get go. And Mo Murray, who's a beautiful souled person. And I took from each of them little nuggets of
Yeah.
how would I like to be when I'm in their position. And it's just like being a sponge around these iconic people, and without that, I don't think I would be where I am today. So
I think it was
vitally important.
I think it was Meryl Streep once said that somebody said to her, how come you're so good at what you do? She says, because I've stolen from everybody else. And that's important, I think, in that respect, is talking about being a sponge and soaking up that info. When you made, it's a nice segue, really. You mentioned there in connection with the UK system. When you did make that transition to the UK, working with people like Vic and with Greg and Wade Eastwood later on, was that transition easier because of the experience you'd already gained overseas, or did you have to come in and start from scratch like everybody else joining at that time?
I mean, I paid respect by coming to England and starting from scratch as a
Hmm.
stunt performer because I'd already become a stunt coordinator and had a company in South Africa because I'd been there for 7 years.
Yep.
However, I couldn't just come to England and puff my chest up and go, now I'm a stunt coordinator. You have to pay respect of who is in this country that has already established themselves. However, it did give me confidence of knowledge to be secure of like why I'm on set, what tools I have to offer these people that have employed me to be there, how I can support, how I can be stronger as a senior stunt performer within their team. So it made me less nervous in that aspect that I am was confident with who I've come from and who I'm now going to join.
Okay. Um, let's move on to the Crow then in that respect, and let's suggest that um, in your career to date, I mean, you've never worked on any of the Crow pictures before, but were
No.
you a fan of the comic books, or did you when you saw the Brandon Lee imagining of that character, it was some 30 years ago now, did that play on your mind when approached to do this job now?
Yeah, funny enough, I was a huge fan, as I'm sure anyone my age would be, of the
Mhm.
original Crow. I'm in that genre that, we watched it as a teen, and it was, a very cool classic. for its day, and stayed there. And
Yeah.
funny enough, I got interviewed to be the stunt coordinator for the reshoot of the original Try, when it was, I think it was pushed for about 7 years ago. They tried
Right. Yep.
in Wales, and it was a bit of a different script, and it was kind of, I don't feel it was where it needed to be, and it kind of didn't push forward with the shooting for whatever reason. But I'm
Hmm.
kind of glad that it didn't, because I don't
Yes.
feel it did justice for where it ended up being. Um, so being a fan of The Crow and being a fan of originals anyway, in that sense. And I'm not very much of a graphic novel reader. I'm more of a film fan.
Yep.
So being a fan of original films like Mad Max and, The Crow and certain projects like that, when they do remakes, I always are interested of how is it a remake, or is it a total reboot, or is it a kind of knock-on effect? And I'm really glad that when I read the first script that got sent to me by Rupert Sanders, that this was a whole kind of refresh, rather than a sequel. And
Right.
we're trying to just knock on effect of a sister movie of what was already an amazing movie by Brandon Lee.
Because obviously further down the line there would be an expectation of certain levels of action which then you'd have to try and top every time if you're coming along and doing this. So I see how it makes sense to you to come in fresh, so to speak, in that respect. We are 5 movies down the line now, and I'm wondering how much of the written action that's created visually was relatively easy for you to get hold of and be able to work on. Was a lot of it was prevised, I'm guessing, and being able to create it from scratch. Were there sequences that you had to put a real extra amount of work in, or did it, the way it was written, did it make a lot of sense as far as that's no problem, I can create this sequence, this seems relatively easy?
Yeah, I mean, the writing really paid off for interpretation to what we could design.
Hmm.
And Rupert's vision was very clear. He had an amazing vision for what he wanted to see and what he wanted to film. So when it came to translating that onto a previs, and then from previs onto screen, it was quite easy for us. And obviously, the only adaptation we would then do was what was location friendly. Obviously,
Yeah.
certain things don't fit the location. But I think, in a sense, it was very clear from the get go. So from page to print was a smooth process, and Rupert's vision was also make that transition quite easy going.
Because you hear of so many occasions where you're being as the stunt coordinator, as the supervisor of the action, you're being relied upon to turn that on the page into something much more realistic. But if it's already there, I suppose it gives you a great deal of leeway to be able to do a little bit more with it as you go along.
Absolutely. I mean, we always have interpretation of, okay, how can we heighten this? How can we, translate this into, this is all written already well, but how can we pimp it a little bit? How can we
Yeah.
sprinkle the glitter onto what's on the page? Um, but I always approach a job, especially something like this, that has already a leading thing that people are going to pitch it against.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to do better like a sequel. I'm not trying to do better than what people have previously done, because I think that's quite egotistical. I think the guys did an amazing job. It's more to pay respect and what can we do that they would be proud of,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's my approach. Yeah.
We touched briefly there on previs. With previs, once you've looked at what is required and the previs has come together, how much more input along the way in connection with your fight coordinators and previs coordinators, how much more is there for you to go, look, I've got an idea. How about we do this, which will make the story flow a little better to get from this part to this part? Was there still that amount of leeway for your input?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of that, once we do the previews, and luckily for this, we had enough time to do that. It all depends on the time that we have while we're in prep until we shoot that sequence.
Hmm.
And here, luckily, we had that time where immediately as soon as we shot the previews, I would take it into Rupert. Me and Rupert would sit together. What do you think? Oh, this is good. What about this? Okay, great. That's a good idea. I would then sit with my team. Rupert thinks this, but what about this? And we'd always bounce it back and forward, and the location is this, so that doesn't really lend its hand to this, but we could do this to
Right.
heighten that. So we always try to rehash the I think it's very, if you do have the time, I wouldn't want to just do one previews and go, cool, that's it, print. Let's take the rest of the time and just chill out. I think
Right.
it's like a painting. If you can just keep touching it up and make it better until we start shooting it, then it's great. It's a
Because
big difference. But
you were
yeah,
there
sorry,
from
go
the
on, John.
from the initial location scout as well, were you?
Correct, yeah.
Right. So presumably there's ideas there which then are translated into that previs. You hear so many stories of previs where people present it to the director who says, "Cool, we'll shoot it," but it's never really that simple. It can't be from one location to the next. There's got to be little bits of changes along the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's the location. It's once the DOP gets involved and you go, okay, well, what about this camera style? And we kind of attack it in this way. And then it's like, okay, well, this location's great for that. And it's better that we shoot it favoring this side than the side that we've shot it, because
Yep.
it's much more beautiful looking this way.
Hmm.
So that changes the whole dynamics and the rhythm of the shot and the side that we've shot it from. So little elements like that will adjust how you can make it better. And like I said, it's putting that flavor on it and going along that whole process, and things reveal themselves along the way, and you've got to roll with that.
I've been lucky enough to be able to see a couple of scenes from the picture. It's not out yet, but there's a couple of fabulous set pieces. If we could just talk through some of those, if we may. The first is the fight in the car. There's a chase sequence. There's a fight in a car. Now, there's a couple of points along the way. Firstly, there's a fabulous knockdown that starts the whole thing off. Who's the double on that? Do you remember?
Yes, that double is my nephew, so I remember him
Right.
very well.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's very hard to hit your nephew with the car.
Yeah, but that's what kids are for. Sometimes they
That's
just
what.
overstep the mark. What can you do?
Luckily, I've got
But
another nephew, John, so I'm good.
you've got, oh, that's all right then. So you're not going to lose anything, are you? Do him and everybody else a favor. Name check the dude, would you?
Yeah, his name's Daniel Gregory.
Daniel Gregory, super.
He's been on my team now for 5 years. He's a great up and coming stuntman. He was on The Crow with me. He was on The Witcher with me. He's done a few jobs before that, working with me and Greg Powell.
Right.
So he's been amongst some very good people with my fight team as well. And then luckily, for him, he was just a great double for Bill.
For Bill, yeah. It's and
Um,
also the vehicle that's being used, it's not just a standard knockdown where you just get the timing right and lift your knees up and try and get up onto the bonnet. It's a very high bonnet on this thing. This was done timing physically, or was there a wire job to get him up there in the first place?
no, it was done from timing,
Oh,
and
cool.
it was done with cuts. We did it practically,
Yep.
and we did it up until the window crash, and we did it at a safe speed. And then we did an insert of the interior of the car where obviously you get the impact of the
Yeah.
windscreen of him
It's
coming into
very
the car.
impressive, I must say, for him to come up on top of it like that. It's very good, and that kicks the whole sequence off. Then what happens, of course, is that there is action inside the vehicle itself. Now, uh, from a camera position, there are a number of camera positions, but from a main camera position, you're looking at the driving position and the seats behind. This presumably this fight was choreographed elsewhere from a size point of view. Is that the actual interior of the vehicle, or is that a separate set? Can we find that out?
Yeah, so we shot a mix of exterior on location and
Yep.
interior on a volume stage.
Okay.
So, and we choreographed it and prevised it as well. And we prevised it using a kind of Unreal Engine system where we could build the environment on an animatic status where we knew the exterior shots and what interior shots we needed and which would blend from one to another.
Right. Okay.
And this is a process we started to use because not many people previous car chases because it's so expensive.
Yes,
But
exactly. Yeah.
technology's come on so far, and I have good visual effects people on my team that we can now use virtual worlds to create our car chase sequences so we can actually previs them and know what shots are needed at the volume or on green screen or on location for the exterior. So yeah, we knew what shots we wanted inside, and like I said, the volume stage helps for them certain kind of things, and we created the shots and kind of just favored inside to outside to give you a bit of transition to make you feel that we're still in the location that we were in the chase.
It's it's not giving anything away that it's done that way, but I think what is interesting is the fact that it is so realistic. As you said yourself, technology has come on so much. You are so used to either it being, when you compare pictures from 30 years ago, you are very used to having either a back projection of some shape or form, a rolling back projection that may be going along, or indeed, separate shots outside and then cutting to a studio shot inside. But it's really complicated to decipher where one finishes and where the other starts in this, which has to be the entire purpose of the exercise.
Yeah, I think, with myself and Rupert, it was also very important that the camera movement also didn't allow the audience to feel that transition from interior and exterior.
Mm-hmm.
So the energy was kept up, that it kept you within the rhythm of the whole sequence, that you didn't even question that at any moment.
Yeah, and I think it does that certainly. There was never it was only afterwards when I went, hang on, I had to go back and look at it again to go, really? How on earth did that? It was just so many questions happening to me all at once because I was convinced that it was just right there, and that's exactly the purpose of the exercise. So well done you for doing that.
Oh, that's the best compliment. Thank you, John.
No, not at all. It's fabulous. The other thing I would like to touch on, of course, is there are gunshots taking place within the vehicle. There has to be for the purpose of the story. Those bangs put on afterwards, visually, I'm assuming there wouldn't be anything of wadding or anything of that nature inside. Just to clarify.
Yeah, so obviously being in such a close quarter environment, we don't use blanks
Right.
or any of that. We use airsoft guns for close quarters, so we can get recoil on the gun, and they
Yep.
are safe to use at a blank firing range as long as you're in the right environment.
Mm-hmm.
And all we do is we inside an environment like a car or a room, any close space that might need that. We put a light effect. So we have a light inside the car, which gives flashes
Right.
and gives the muzzle flash that the VFX and the camera can use, or the DOP can use to grade that, to give the sense that the muzzle flash is going off inside the car. Because without the light, it's kind of unconvincing.
Yes, it doesn't
to
work,
put it in,
particularly because
and you just get the.
it's taking place at night. It's inside a tunnel. There's all of that going on. So you need those flashes. Fabulous. And of course, the other thing to mention as far as this goes is his exit from the vehicle, which is as brutal as the entrance onto the vehicle at the start. Done in a couple of ways, I'm imagining, from either physically leaving the vehicle to then a CG equivalent leaving the vehicle. Would that be pretty much right? A combination of the two?
Correct. You're right in saying that, John. Well picked up. You know your stuff.
Well, I mean,
So yes,
I was going to shout his name from the rooftops if he did the whole thing for real. I mean, I don't think there's
I
enough money
mean,
in the world to either consider that one, frankly. But
no, I mean, yeah, I think that the beauty of our job in today's society is how we can convince people that it's really dangerous and
yeah,
impactful and painful. But we're in a society now and a genre now and an era, sorry, where we can be super safe,
mm,
and we can use the technology to our favor. And we did the interior for him getting kicked out on the volume stage, and we did the exterior cutting to Bill rolling into frame, and we did a slight transition of a digidouble.
Right.
And as long, like we said, with Rupert's help and guidance, and our integration with keeping the camera motion a very good dynamic movement, we seamlessly stitch that together.
Yeah,
So
no,
it stops.
it's a fabulous scene. It really does work. So you've got that scene there where it's very close quarters. There's characters within the vehicle, an awful lot going on. To the opera scene, which must be in the equivalent, like playing on a football stadium. I mean, it looks like a huge set by the looks of things,
Mm.
and the types of action that's going on. I mean, you must have been like a child at Christmas thinking, right, how many
Yeah.
different ways can we kill these individuals in a very short space of time? Well, I'm imagining that at some point there was a big hat on the table and people just throwing ideas in for you to go, not as silly as you thought. No, that's possible. How complicated was that to work out? Was that a long process?
Well, yes, I think we had 6 versions of this previous, and it was one of
Right.
them where we spoke about earlier, where it was just like,
Mhm.
okay, this is great. We've got the musicality, we love the form of it. We've depicted what is on the script. We've had a meeting with Rupert, and this is our take on it.
Right.
And then it just evolved, and like, oh, we could do this, and this could be better. And oh my God, the stairwell and the theater and the and it just evolved, and it was just one of them where it just became joyful, like you said, of like we could do
Mm.
and this could be better, and look at this, look at the space we have, and we just kept on having fun with that. Of like we could kill a guy this way, and this hasn't been seen before, and um, so yeah, that was a really fun project, and also with the arc of the camera as well as the character,
Yes.
we wanted to feel at the beginning when he's kind of in that unsure space of himself. And this was also with Rupert of, having a character arc within the action of not just action for action's sake, of like feeling very claustrophobic in his nervousness of like what's
Yes.
going on with me. And then once he's comfortable with himself, we open up and we settle the camera, and we allow it to be a bit more full frame and go with him, and a less kind of energetic, and we settled. He's settled where he is, and we are settled where we are. And I think it kind of plays to that.
I think it does. I also think that it says a great deal about Bill Skarsgård because when he's there and he's in shot, you can't take your eyes off him. I mean, he
Yeah.
really does capture that moment, and everything you were just saying there a moment ago, by he's having those moments in his head going, what's going on? What's the situation where you can see it all happening and you can see the cogs turning for him to then make the decision about getting out of the way of this and dealing with this situation over here and dealing with that over there. It's absolutely remarkable. Did that take you said 6 previses, so how long are we talking over a period of time before the shooting took place? Was that a relatively long shoot? There's quite a lot of it.
It was quite a long shoot, but we were so rehearsed and well prepped for that.
Mm.
It was just a previews we kept on revisiting when we kind of had a little idea here, or we saw where his character was going. So that might have been like, okay, let's shift this to there.
Right.
Um, so it wasn't like, okay, we need to do all this rehashing a week and then rush it. It was the right time due, but like I said, we were so rehearsed and everybody knew what we were going into that the shoot, I think we shot it in a week. So
Right. Okay. Because there,
yeah.
there are those, we've been through all of that. You go through all of that entire experience as the viewer watching it to go, right, that's the character. This is the situation he's in. This is how he's trying to get out of it. And then the payoff is some of the most gruesome deaths you've ever seen. I mean, they do take you by, you have a moment where you have to sit back and go, wow, this is different because I haven't seen that before. Yeah, I've seen a guy shot before, but not like that. And I've seen somebody killed before,
Mm.
but not like that. Were there moments, was that written in, or was that genuinely an idea that people coming up with ideas of how we can make it better?
So yeah, that was my, I pay a lot of respect to my stunt team that I had there, and the 2 fight choreographers, which
Mm.
I'd love to name, which was Loan Busson and Max Ikofilia and Godfrey um, Rockefeller, which has worked for me again for a long
Mm.
time, and they're amazing, amazing fight choreographers and VFX guys. Um, And it was just the, the crow fights his way through the staircase to get himself to where he wants to get to. And it was left up to us to how he does that and
Right.
how we kill people.
Okay.
And it was that journey of us going amongst the stunt team and the fight guys and how we can make it really new and fresh but without going slasher. We wanted to
Yes,
make it.
yes. Yeah,
We
there is a
wanted to,
line and it's not
there
crossed.
is a
No, that's right.
line. Yeah, we didn't want to make it disgusting. We want to make
Hmm.
it painful.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the fine line we wanted to tread, and we wanted to keep on the painful side and not step into the slasher side. Um, so that was more of our journey of keep playing with that of like we could kill a guy this way and this would be exciting and this would make the popcorn moments of people in the cinema having them kind of really exciting moments that maybe they're hiding behind the pillow and
Yeah, yeah,
and and
exactly.
stuff. And that was just the fun of it. So and like I said, it's honor to Rupert and my fight guys that were really on the design side and tweaking until we could make it at the best we could be.
I think there's always the possibility of too much input from a writing perspective that then makes it very complicated for you to do what you do. And then there's the other extreme of that where it simply says character has great car chase, and you realize that car chase has to be 11 minutes long, and you go, whoa, hang on a second, let's think about this for a second. Nobody mentioned this. We're talking out the location, so it is swings around about. But it's good that you've been able to take as much from that and be able to create it yourself. Filmed predominantly in Prague, with a relatively small stunt team, it has to be said. A huge amount of action. I'm always fascinated by that. The first movie I ever saw at the cinema was a movie called Escape to Athena, with
Mm.
Paul Weston was Vic was the coordinator on it, and I saw all these explosions and bits and pieces and car chases, bike chases, but 9 people working on the picture. Really? They've done all of that? It's a similar exercise here. It's not the biggest team in the world, is it? And yet you've managed to, it's very much like an old school picture in that respect, if you see what I'm saying. Whereas now, how many times have you've probably been in movies? You have been in movies, in point of fact, where the stunt credits roll for like 2 pages, because there's that many people on it. And yet this one, it doesn't seem as though there was that many, and yet you've managed to get huge amounts of work out of everybody, and they must be really thrilled about the amount of work that they've all been able to take part in on this picture. That must be terribly gratifying from a coordinator's point of view to go, we did a really great job here. You can be really proud of this.
Yeah, it's gratifying for me, but also very proud of the team I surround myself by. But basically, I owe it all to them. I'm just there to guide them, but be supported by them, and
Yeah,
I can only be appreciated and be where I am today with their support, and their skill. And I would say that I really enjoy the I wouldn't say the lower budget jobs, but that middle range where you are in a 40 million to 70 million, where it
yeah, yeah,
becomes more personal, but you have to think on your feet and be efficient to where you utilize stunt people in the best fashion, as opposed to being drowned by 100 stunt people that you just
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
okay, 20 people go on set just standing around and stuff like that. And it becomes very ingenuity to kind of like, how do we utilize these small amount of people in the best fashion?
sure. And Prague, of course, it's become like a mecca for filmmakers of these days. I think since the early 2000s, everybody was going. I was over on what was the Knight's Tale, which was filmed at Columbia Pictures. Sort of bought a village and then built this big castle in the middle of it and employed everybody around it. Everybody got to work in there. And the Taken movies filmed there, and there's all these lots of TV shows and stuff. Why is Prague so popular? Do you know why that would be from your experience of working in the city? Is it a very cooperative city as far as filmmaking is concerned?
I would say, from my understanding, there's always a switch of who has the best facilities.
Right.
And in the start of the film industry becoming more European, there's been huge projects, Braveheart, Gladiator, Troy, and obviously they've had to pull massive resources from these countries that at that time were great fighters, great horse people,
Yeah.
and because of these numbers, they grew to be great facilitators. Now, Prague, Hungary, Bulgaria have constantly, from that point, become known as amazing stunt teams with a big number of people because they were flown in to make up the numbers of all these big action sequences. And
Yes.
from then on, obviously, each of them has studios that have then gone on to facilitate incoming productions from outside. But they've still had that reputation, so it's alongside all the tax credit or whatever suits budget wise. So going into Prague, I was lucky enough to work in Prague many years ago with Greg Powell on Unlocked,
Yep.
and got to know a lot of stunt people there. I was on World War Z with luckily with Wade Eastwood, an
Hmm.
amazing production, which again was one of them productions where we travelled to different locations, but we had Hungarians, Czech.
Yes.
So again, it's just like the experience that international stunt coordinators and second directors knew that it's just like these people are the best, these people are great, and the integration helps you to go, oh, we can film that there because they've got a great stunt team.
Right.
They've got a great facilitating company. So that reputation just goes around.
Well, look, I wish you all the very best with it. I sincerely hope it's an absolute blockbuster at the cinema. I dare say it's going to be fantastic, and you must. I'm thrilled that you're involved with it. Just to finish off, I do this with a lot of the interviews. I've got just a handful of quick fire questions, if I may throw them at you. And as I say, that they are quick fire. You may take longer to answer them if you so wish, but it's entirely up to you. So, just off the top of your head, the first one: favorite action movie.
Drive.
Drive. Okay, good answer. Best stunt that you've seen on film or TV. It may not necessarily be one that you were involved in.
Tom Cruise base jumping off a motorbike off a cliff.
Right. That is going to take some beating. He keeps pushing the bar, doesn't he? Um, who were your heroes growing up?
In movie.
Yeah, in movie. You mentioned earlier in connection with your father, but yeah, let's in film. Who were those ones that you?
Yeah, I'd say in life, my father and my
Mhm.
grandfather especially. Um, but in film, I mean, I was a fan of, I wouldn't say specific people, but I loved the A Team. I
Yeah.
loved Knight Rider. I loved Nighthawk. I loved The Fall Guy. I loved The Hulk. I loved them Sunday afternoon shows that
Yes.
really kind of, so it wasn't really someone specific. I didn't really have a specific hero. I just had specific shows that I loved. And the heroes to me were more in just normal life.
A lot of great shows back then, I must say. That Sunday
Mm,
afternoon slot was always a belter, wasn't it? With
yeah,
Chips, I seem
yeah.
to remember being one of them at that time as
Chips as
well.
well, yeah, yeah.
Have you ever turned down a job because it was just too complex or far too dangerous?
Yes.
Is right? That'll do. I don't need to know any details about it, but that will do. I'm always confused by those people who go, "No." You go, "Really?" I think in fact you probably have. You're just not prepared to tell me. So yes, it's perfectly acceptable. And finally, if you had the opportunity to give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
It would be probably to take up stunts when I was a younger age and don't bother with the military. Yeah, I think we believe that we're doing good in them days, and I was 16
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
it's a
stuff like
different
that.
world
But
now.
I'm totally against totally against war now, and
Mm.
think that we could evolve and be living a peaceful life and pretend to be military but not need to be military.
Yep, no, got it.
Yeah.
Adam, it's been a joy. Thank you for that. I wish you all the very best, fella, and hopefully we'll catch up again at some point. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, John. Been a pleasure. Speak to you soon.
There we go. So catch The Crow when it comes out at the cinema here in the UK at the end of August, and I dare say that will be filling multiplexes up and down the country before it gets a streaming release, I dare say, the way things are going these days. So if you've enjoyed that, why not subscribe? Go on, you know you want to. There's a little button down here on the right-hand side. You can go and subscribe. Lots of people have, and we'll try and get you some more content. The podcast, of course, is on the Wednesday, and the YouTube show will be here on the Friday, so you can start your weekend with a bang. Until next time, it's bye for now.